What's going on YouTube? It's Adam here with Retro Repairs and time for another quick repair video. In front of me here, as you can see, I've got a Gameboy Advance. So I picked this guy up off eBay for, I think it was 25 bucks. And they said it was not working. It works, but the start and select button don't work. So we got some bad buttons here. Hopeful that this should be a pretty quick clean and repair video. So hopefully we can get right into this and take a look, see what the problem is and how to fix it. So to start, let's test it. I'm going to use the Pokemon Fire Red that I repaired in my most recent video here. Let's turn her on, see what we got. So as you can see, it quite clearly works. Press start. Cannot press start. I can press A to get through. Can't press select, but I can go down. Up is a little sticky too. You gotta really push up for it to work. A seems to work fine. B seems to work fine. So start, select, and up seem to be the and the shoulder buttons seem to work as well. All right, so let's just let's crack her open, see what we've got here. So take the batteries out, the game out. So to get into this, what you're gonna need is a tri-wing screwdriver, and looks like there are 6 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So let's just take those out right now. Okay, so the front and the back should come apart. I think there's a little bit of a release right in the middle here. Oh, there's one more screw. So there is a little black Phillips screw here. So I need to switch bits and remove that guy. There we go. So let's put those all in one little compartment here. All right, so now this should just lift up straight like that. So we've got the backing here. It's not in too bad of shape actually, so I'll give it a little bit of a wipe down, but really just gonna focus on fixing up the board here. So let's put that off to the side. Here we've got a couple, it's gonna be a couple screws here, but the interesting thing to note is this screw right here, right, that one, super loose. So I wonder if it got loosened already, or, and the other screws are just straight up missing. So there's no screws holding this side of the board in place, and this screw is not there, or this screw is super loose. So I'm suspecting someone's been in here before. So we can lift off trigger buttons and the little bumpers on the side. Let's just see what we've got here. Let's remove the screen. So to remove the screen, there's a little release at the top. So you gotta push that up. And then very carefully just pull this ribbon cable straight out. There we go. Now we should be able to lift this board clean off and see what it is that we're looking at. Okay, so start and select are right here. There's this little rubber pad connected here, and it was a little bit sticky. So what we're gonna need to do is clean these pads on the board in order for the button to get the proper connection here. The rest of them seem to work okay with the exception of up, so this should be a real quick clean here. So for this, what we're gonna use is Isopropyl alcohol, 99% is ideal as long as you can get a hold of it. I live in Canada, so up here you can buy it at your local drugstore. I understand that some states do not sell higher percentage isopropyl alcohol, so if you can get 90, 90 works. In a pinch, I guess you could use 70, but that has a little higher water content, so you just want to be careful with it. Make sure that you're cleaning everything up real nicely. So let's give these pads a bit of a scrub. They don't seem overly dirty. I don't see much coming up off of them, but do all the pads anyways. And then we're gonna clean the, oops, we're shaking here. Gonna clean those conductive pads as well that we're connecting. So those feel good. The rest of the board actually looks pretty clean. So there's not a whole lot here that we need to really clean up. So we're gonna put that off to the side. And then for this part, you're gonna want a piece of paper. So little trick that I use when it comes to cleaning these pads. So we're gonna get these conductive pads off the board, or off the shell. And first thing to do is just give them a wipe down again with some isopropyl alcohol. You wanna get any spilled stuff in there. You might notice that this one has some green on it. I don't think that came off the board itself, so I don't know what might have been spilled in here, but just give these a wipe down. Then flip it over on your piece of paper using gentle pressure only. Just rub it against the paper. So what that's gonna do is kind of take off a very tiny layer of that, that black conductive pad, but it's gonna make it smooth. So if there's anything that's kind of sitting on there, giving an uneven contact, it helps just to really make it smooth so that you're getting a solid connection when you push the buttons. So you should see these lines appearing here. You're not going to do this until they stop appearing because it's going to keep going until you wear completely through. But do the same thing for the other pads. Even though these were working fine, it's good to do this, you know, once every 20 years, as is the case with this. And then same thing here. Give it a bit of a couple drags. And that one's fine. And then same thing here, couple drags. And that is good. So one other thing I want to do is clean up just the kind of general grime on these buttons. So you might see some like dark stuff around the edges here. I just like to take a toothbrush and really go to town with that, put it in some alcohol, try and scrape off whatever you can here. Ideally, you might actually soak these, which I think I'm actually going to have to do because these are pretty dirty. So let's soak them in some soapy water just to clean up the shell parts. So that means I'm going to do this whole thing. So all the buttons come out. Careful that you're not dropping any. LED diffuser will come out. And do I want to take the screen out? Probably. So to take the screen out, all I usually do is just kind of twist it very gently. And you'll see that the corner of the screen starts to lift up. You can usually get under that with something not sharp. You don't want to scratch it. And just to kind of lift it back a bit. So there is a little bit of adhesive here. You want the adhesive to come up as well with the screen. And you want it to stay on the screen. There we go. So that screen is out. And then we just kind of run this adhesive back on where it belongs. So this ensures the proper spacing around the screen and also makes sure that it's staying stuck in place. So now, all you do, fill up a sink with some hot soapy water. You're gonna put all of the plastic parts in, let them soak, give them a scrub, and then let them dry thoroughly, and then we reassemble. So I've done that a whole bunch of times already for you guys, so I'm not gonna document this part just to keep the video fairly quick. I think I am going to remove this little metal bracket though, so just take the Phillips screwdriver, 2 screws, and that comes out. So I'm not going to wash that. I'm just going to wash the plastic parts here. So we'll be back when those are ready to be reassembled. So the one part I almost forgot actually to remove here was these battery terminals. So it's a good idea to take them out if you're going to wash your shell, because they can just trap some moisture in there and you're going to have it not fully dried. So all you need to do, flip it over, take a very fine fit or a slotted screwdriver, and there's a little slot right here. Just push it down in there and there should be something that releases, and then the terminals should come out. Sometimes they, yeah, that's released. Sometimes you just got to kind of wrestle with them a little bit. There we go. So it just needs to come up really straight. It was coming out at a bit of an angle, so it wasn't really cooperating. Check out these terminals first, because these are pretty common to build up with old battery acid and corrosion. So if you need to clean them up, use this as an opportunity to give those a good clean and get that corrosion off there, so your batteries are giving you a solid connection at all times. But now that that's out, I'm going to dunk it in the water, going to scrub it out, let it kind of soak and penetrate and get all the dirt and grime out. Dry them up, and then reassemble. All right, so I've got the shell parts back, so they're all nice and cleaned up. You want to make sure things like the screen is very well dried. It's not streaky on the inside or anything like that, because you are going to have a lot of difficulty getting it truly clean, or getting it nice and clean if you let it dry like that, because then you're going to have to take it all apart and clean it again, basically. So before I go any further, I'm just going to make sure that all the little water residue is up with a microfiber cloth. Also want to make sure that there's not any dust particles and little hairs and things like that stuck in there too. All right, so let's begin reassembly. I'm going to start with the easy bits. So taking the back part of the shell, and need to reinstall the terminal here. So lining it up, it's going in this side right here. So all you really have to do, line up the negative, which is the tall part, the springy part. That's going to go on this side. So it really only fits one possible way. Line it up, push it straight down. There we go, and that's sitting nicely in place like that. Okay, now flip it back over. We have to reinstall this little metal bracket. Also doubles as some shielding. So it goes in just like so. And I believe there is one screw on the bottom here on each side. So using my Phillips screwdriver, we just reinstall those screws. Quick tip, when you're screwing in screws like this into plastic, try screw them in backwards first to start, and then screw them in forwards. And what that does is helps to make sure that the threads are grabbing properly and that it's getting screwed in properly. Otherwise, you may end up with some stripped plastic in that place, which you really don't want. I'm gonna find the proper screw here. Nope, not that one. It's easy to find the right one because these ones are Phillips heads and the rest are tri-wings. But Oops, I just dropped one, so don't do that. That's a bad idea. Okay, screw's been recovered, I think. Yep, there we go. So we're gonna put that one in place now. And again, just screw it backwards or counterclockwise about a half turn until you kind of feel it click, and then screw it in all the way. All right, so now going to grab the screen, and the screen's going to be reinstalled in place. So give this a good once over. Make sure that there's no smudges or anything. There's a little, looks like fingerprint smudge at the top. So I'm going to wipe that off lightly with a static-free cloth. Or not static-free, a lint-free cloth, sorry. And then also just making sure that I'm picking up any other little dust that's sitting on there. There we go. So this will sit face down, like so. And the little ribbon connector is going to be near the top where this little cutout is. So I'm just going to push it gently into place. You don't want to really force it, you don't need to, but you want to push around the edges, never in the middle, around the edges, just to make sure that that adhesive is bonding nicely. Okay, so now that that's in place, we're going to put the buttons in. So the buttons are kind of the easy part. They really only go in one way usually. So we have our A button and our B button. A button goes not there. So you see how this little nub at the top doesn't quite fit in. I could probably zoom a bit for you. You see how this doesn't quite fit in the hole here? So we're gonna have to rotate it around, put it where it belongs there. Same thing with the B, it only fits in one way. There's a little LED diffuser which goes right at the very top here, and you just have to rotate it until it fits nicely. There's a little notched cutout and it nestles against this screw post. The left and right triggers are gonna go obviously on the appropriate left and right side. So they just kind of sit with these little posts in place, and this small little metal hinge or spring is just going to push against the plastic here. So it gives it a little bit of resistance when you push in. Same thing with the right trigger or bumper, whatever we want to call it. It's going to sit in just like so. These little side bumper parts, these aren't buttons, but again, they need to sit into place before you put the other side of the shell on. They only go on one way. You'll see that there's a little notch here, so it needs to sit into place. It looks like they also print on the inside. There's an R, and the other side had an L. So just little things that will help you get the parts in where they need to be. D-pad, I don't think it really matters which direction it goes. So just sit it in place. And then your start and select. So start and select is not an actual physical button, but just these little rubber pads here. So I'm gonna put it in place. You'll note that it's kind of shaped like a capital B with a hole in it. So that hole has to go on top of this post. So just making sure that it's rotated the proper way, sitting just like so. The D-pad, again, you'll see there's two little holes here. There's two little posts there. So again, we'll just sit right on top, line up the posts and the holes. Like that. And then lastly, A and B buttons, same thing. There's a post, there's a hole and a bigger hole. So a post and a bigger post. Using a little bit of logic, you can figure out that that's how that goes. All right, last part is the power button. So the power, there's a little, how it looks here, there's a notch on the top here, and there's, I'm gonna call it a nub on the bottom. The nub goes down so that it can have a little click, and that way the notch sits here so that the power switch on the board can activate that. So now I'm going to grab the board, take it, flip it over, line it up with everything. So you need to get the speaker in where the speaker belongs. That's probably a good first thing to line up. making sure that these bumpers are staying aligned. Might even try it without the bumpers first. For those wondering what that sound might be. Hi, Kona. She's just playing with her ball. She likes to do that while we do some repairs here. All right, so back to business. So make sure that the buttons are all sitting in place. Get the speaker lined up first. Get everything kind of clicked down into place. You need the switch in the proper spot. The switch actually goes in, it looks like, after everything. So let's pull the switch clean out. Get the board into place. Now we'll put the switch in. Now we can make sure that these little side bumpers remain in place. The left and the right trigger might be a little easier to put in after. So right now, actually, there we go. And then that one goes in there. So I'm going to screw it in using the single screw that came with the system here. And then I'm going to have to find a couple other screws. So I do like to harvest screws out of dead systems that I collect. So it comes in handy for times like this when you have a working system, but they just didn't send you the right amount of screws. Let's make sure I'm not putting that in the wrong spot first. Nope, that's great. There we go. So that's holding in place nicely. So I'm going to go find a couple more screws and then we will put in the rest of these. Okay, so unfortunately I don't have any screws that will fit this particular system, so I may have to take a look on eBay and try and find some more screws. So I'm going to close it up for now, but I'm going to have to make sure I put a note on it that it's not fully screwed on for the board. So for reference, the screws that you will need to screw in are going to be, I believe, here, and then these ones are done through the case. Same with the bottom one. So really only 2 more screws are necessary. So otherwise this kind of does move a little bit. Once I get the case put together, it will help hold it into place a little bit better, but it's just not ideal. So last thing before we put this all back in together is this ribbon connector here. So folding it back, line it up with the socket for it. You want to get it nice and straight, and then just push it in evenly, and then push in the little locks on the side. Just like so. So now we're ready to put the back shell into place. So back shell should sit really nicely just like that. You have 6 case screws plus a black case screw as well. So I'm going to put the black one in first just so that because it uses the same screw bits, so that way I don't have to keep switching bits back and forth. Put that in. I'm going to switch to my tri-wing bit and then put in the rest of the case screws. Okay, so now that's back together, let's throw some batteries in and give it a test. Oops. Throw the game in. Volume up. Power on. There we go. So I think I'm going to have to clean the cartridge connector of this as well. So I'm going to show you a real quick way to do that without taking it apart. But I'm going to test the buttons first. So we should be able to press start. And there we go, it works now. Up works pretty well. Up, up. Don't have to push hard like we used to. Pretty light touch is all that's required. So consistent with the other ones. A, B, should be able to hit start. Let's go in my bag. Select works. So this is clearly working. So I'm going to show you a quick way to try and clean out this cartridge slot. And you don't need to take this apart in order to do it. Sometimes it can be a little tricky because all the pins faced one way, so it's a little difficult to sometimes get the right type of leverage on those pins. So easy, quick way to do it. Take a cheap game you don't really care too much about. You're realistically not going to damage the game, but I wouldn't do it on a really good game that you like. But take it, coat it with some rubbing alcohol with a Q-tip, and then just in and out. You want this to try and loosen up some of the grime that might be on those pins and that's causing read errors. So let's try this. Hopefully first try it will work again. There we go. Try it one more time. There we go. So that was a quick clean and kind of a quick refurbishing of a Game Boy Advance. So really appreciate everyone watching. Hopefully you're able to learn something from this and be able to clean up your own Game Boy Advance, get some of those buttons working again properly. So if you like the video, give it a like, leave a comment below in the comment section, subscribe to my channel as well. You can get your first notifications when I post new content. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time.